Good afternoon, everybody. And I'm just trying to share my screen. How are we there? So look, one of the great things about being involved with LEDF is that I get to learn lots of lessons off the way that Pete's been running the farm for the last decade or so. And one of the things I was quite keen to have a closer look at was how they're winter feeding cows. And they do some quite serious drafting through May. And the allocation of animals is quite, feeding animals is quite different. So I was quite keen to share that with everybody, just to challenge how we feed our cows. You know, we typically just come up with the stock standard numbers, which might be 13 or 14 kilos a cow, and allocate that to the herd. But once we dive into the numbers, as we're going to do right now, there's an opportunity lost where we can get some significant savings in dollars and also better results for our cow condition if we do winter feed for cow condition. So what Peter did last year is he split the herd up into 4 mobs. He had light condition cows, which were 3.5 to 4 condition score cows, mid condition score cows in the second mob, and late calving cows at condition score 4. So they were cows that calving in September. It is fat cows, which are 5+, and in-calf heifers. And the surprising thing as we'll go through this is that the demand for in-calf heifers isn't too dissimilar to what the fat cows need. And I've certainly been guilty as a farmer of putting my in-calf heifers with sort of our mid-condition or light condition cows, thinking, you know, we don't need the competition and we'll take it easy on them. In actual fact, we could be a bit more efficient with our feed if we ran these animals separately, or run them in with the fat cows if you're a smaller herd. This is the condition score for last May for LEDF. So, and the herd's been condition scored this afternoon. So we haven't got the current data, but we'll have it available on the website next week. So you can see quite a range in the herd last year of 3.5s and 4s, with a few at 5s and 6s right at the top end. This doesn't include our in-calf heifers. So what are the implications of this, and how does it affect what we feed our cows? So this will go up on the website as well. It's a bit of a table, and I've extrapolated it from the Dairy NZ website, and I'll show you where the link is for that too later if you need it. So there's quite a bit going on involved in this table, so I'll go through it slowly. So on the left-hand axis, we've got our feed cow condition score gain and what we need to be doing. So we've got our fat cows that don't need to put on any weight, cows that we want to do half a score with in 60 days, so that's your 4.5s. Calving in August. We've got cows that are a kilo in 60 days. And then you've got those September calving cows which need to put on half a kilo, half a condition score or a whole condition score. So that's the range that's going on down there. And then across the top axis we've got 2 different feed groups. We've got 10.5 ME quality feed and then 11.5 ME quality feed. Your 10.5 ME quality feed is when you're feeding, that'll be like a combination of kale and straw, or kale and poor quality baleage, or pasture and poor quality baleage and straw. Your 11.5 ME feed would be a rocket fuel winter feed diet. So that would be a combination of rape and baleage, fodder beet and baleage, so a really high quality winter feed diet. So we've got 2 types of feed, 2 qualities of feed there. We then have set in place 2 utilisation programs. So I'll show you some photos on the way through. One set at 70% utilisation, which is poorer utilisation, and 80% utilisation. And then underneath that, we've then got live weights going on there as well. So quite a busy table, but it allows you to pick up, target what you want to do for these, 3 or 4 groups of animals if you draft your cow condition, draft your herd up based on cow condition. Your utilisation will be also driven by how hard you're pushing cows and how low their demand is. So for cows that are putting on no weight, we don't want them to put on weight over the winter time. You'd be typically operating at 80 to 85% utilisation. So everything's tidied up, nothing's, no leaf is left behind. 70% utilisation will be when you're fully feeding cows and up around the 13s and 14s. So unfortunately, the more you feed animals, the greater the more that they're going to waste. The other thing that's on this table as well is, on that bottom axis, is just the demand from the calf. Your calf demand really starts kicking in and ramping up in the last 4 weeks. So that's just something we need to be wary about, especially within calf heifers if we've got them on a maintenance ration through June. And if they're calving on the 20th of July, just start to allow them to ramp up a bit by 2 to 3 kilos as we go through July and approaching calving, especially if they're still on winter feed. So quite a range of intakes there, and it's quite surprising when we get into it just how little we can get away with feeding our fat cows, but also how much our light cows need. So if we're looking at LEDF, their animals are 500 kilo animals without putting on any weight and with high quality crops. The demand for actually their animals last winter was probably more around that 9.5 kilos of dry matter per cow. So sitting over here, 11 ME feed, 80% utilisation. The winter feed that was used last year was a combination of pretty reasonable quality baleage, rape, Italian and green feed oats. So for cows that are really tidying up and at those sorts of demands, you can get away with about 9.5 to 10 kilos of dry matter per cow, which is a lot lower than I would have expected it to be. For the cows that we wanted to really whack on the weight, so that'd be in this group here, sort of 15, adding a condition score over the winter. Slightly poorer utilisation because we're wasting a bit of feed, but more feed, but their demand is going to be more like 15.5, 16 kilos per cow. So quite an astonishing range in cow intakes and what we need to offer cows. Now I'd have to say for probably about 80% of the dairy farmers and graziers that I work with, we are not allocating feed well enough to take into account the different demands and different expectations we have on stock. So the source that I used for that spreadsheet was you can go into that, is Dairy NZ. They have a winter crop allocation sort of Excel spreadsheet. So if you just follow the Dairy NZ on the home, if you can follow those steps through feed, crops, wintering cows or crops, you'll come up with that Excel spreadsheet that's on there, and I use that to create those demands there. Impact of feed quality. So this is just our experience in terms of where most of these quality, where most of the quality of the various feeds sit for the winter. As I mentioned before, fodder beet, that's pretty solid in terms of its doesn't have a great deal of range around its feed quality. 12.3 we've got there. Swedes are quite similar, 11.5. They don't tend to go stalky. Kale, we've got a really big range in terms of feed quality for kale. Can be as low as 10.5 if you've got these 17, 18 tonne crops. A rule of thumb is that leaf of kale is about 12.8 to 13 megajoules. And kale also maxes out in yield at 6 tonne of leaf. So when you're getting an 18 tonne crop of kale, that extra 3 or 4 tonne is all in the fibre and in the base of the plant. You don't really want that. The branches of kale, the stemmy bits at the top, they're about 10.5 ME, and the stalk can be as low as 6 ME. So you get a big range of MEs within cows. Pasture, 10.5 to 12 ME. 10.5 is frost affected pasture with a lot of brown top in it. 12 ME we could get with Italians and really good quality. Pasture silage, we all know the drill with that. Tend to find though that most wintering silage is more like 8.5 to 10 ME. And same with baleage as well, because our best stuff goes into milking cows. Cereal silage, a big range on cereal silages. You can milk on cereal silage if you get it right, but typically 9.5 ME. Palm kernel, theoretical ME of 11. Milk production responses suggest it's probably higher than that, but that's the science is suggesting 11. 8.5 for your hays and 6.5 for your straws, a bit of range going on there. So when you're looking at allocating, is it a 10.5 or an 11.5 ME feed? As I mentioned before, if you're feeding fodder beet and silages, and your weighted average is probably going to be around 11.5 mark. If you're feeding a lot of straw and big tall kale, you'll be probably coming back to a 10.5 ME feed. Utilisation. You can, as I mentioned before, that a lot of the utilisation also boils down to what you're offering the cow. What we tend to find, and certainly Agricom does some really good work on this as well, is that most people overestimate cow crops and what they've got, and as a consequence probably push cows a bit harder than they should do. This is off the Dairy NZ website, but most of our maths is done at, as we talked before, around that 70% utilisation. So at 70% utilisation, you'd still expect to see a bit of stalk, a bit of leaf lying underneath the cows, you can see there. 90% utilisation, that's when the dirt is bare and everything's been consumed by the cow, and what wasn't consumed has been treated by cows pacing around and looking for more as well. Unfortunately, we probably see a lot of crops at about that 85–90% utilisation, and suggesting cows are being pushed a bit too hard. Fodder beet, a rule of thumb with fodder beet is that they eat about, when they're gorging themselves on it at the moment in the autumn time, it takes about 10 minutes to eat 1 kilogram of dry matter. So it's a really handy rule of thumb to use when you're transitioning cows. So if you want cows to be eating 44 kilos of dry matter, 40–50 minutes if they're really chomping through it and have got a taste for it, that's all they need to be in there for. So really watch that transition, watch the time that you've got on crops. If you're finding it's taking you a good 60 minutes to eat what you thought were 4 kilos, be careful, you might be eating more like 6 kilos. Likewise, if it's gone in 30 minutes, then your yield assessment might be wrong as well. So that's just a bit of a rule of thumb. Once they've got that 4 or 5 kilos, though, they will start slowing down with their eating and come back for more later on. Tend to find with fodder beet, if you are sitting in that 70% utilisation where you're ab-living cows at 15–16 kilos, you will still see the odd beet lying around the next morning, and they'll come back and get it. If your beet is running out by 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the odds are your intakes are pretty light. If you're intending them to be light, that's fine. But if you're trying to feed 15–16 kilos, then you're running a bit short. So getting a bit of visual observation in with your feed budget is certainly worthwhile. So around feed allocation, the tighter the feed allocation, the greater your utilisation is going to be. So you can afford to be aiming, pulling towards the lighter end of what you're offering the cows. Likewise, on the inverse, if you want to really put cows on weight, your utilisation is going to drop and you're going to end up at 70%, and you're going to have to be feeding more like 16 kilos of dry matter a cow to put on weight. The other thing that affects utilisation is around soil types. So our light Lismores that we have in mid-Canterbury, they're brilliant for feeding winter feed on. Unfortunately, they're also a shocker for leaching nitrogen as well. So it goes both ways. but you can get very good utilisation on those soils. Your heavy cropping dirt, your clay downs around the foothills, they can prove to be pretty difficult to get good utilisation of winter feed and silage as well. Obviously, wet weather, that can increase your wastage by 10 to 30%, and it's pretty difficult to predict what's coming up for the winter around the weather. Your guess is as good as mine in terms of how much rainfall we're going to get in June and July. Supplement feeding, where you're putting the feed and where your staff are putting the feed is really crucial. If don't feed silage through the middle of the break, keep it to the break fences or keep it to the edges of the paddock. Ideally, waste not feeders for baleage and straw. They really do improve utilisation remarkably. Break size consistency, this is one of my big bugbears. A lot of people will have 10 to 20% variation in their break sizes unintentionally as well. There's some really good apps on your phone. I'm a Samsung Android user. There's an app on there called Distance and Area app. Apple have a very similar one as well. And you can measure the width of paddocks. You can measure areas quite accurately just using your phone as well. Get a wheel or put a tape measure in your pocket, especially if you're using Photobeat. And for cow it works too, because a number of times I'm only 5'10". My pace is quite different to someone who's at 6'4". So my meters could be equivalent to someone's 1.2. And if you're feeding short breaks, then the difference between 1 or 2 meters and 2.5 meters, that's the difference between an animal being offered 10 kilos and 12.5. So using a measuring wheel or a tape measure, that's worthwhile. So LEDF, how did we go last year? So throwing all the science around how the feed budget should have worked, and this is looking backwards. Peter had 123 cows last year, which needed to put on a condition score. He fed them 16. He had 180 odd cows that needed to put on half a score. They were fed 13 kilos based on 70% utilisation. And he had 129 fat cows that were offered 9.5, and the heifers were offered 10.3. They were watered separately. So, on average, with the heifers involved, LEDF only fed 12.2 kilos of dry matter per cow last year. And including the aged cow, and just the aged cows only, was 12.8. And that surprised me a wee bit. My impression of LEDF before I got involved as a consultant is they must have been paying a small fortune for their winter feed, because they always got their cows so fat. That, as you can see here, is not the case. It's because they have allocated feed appropriately from mob to mob based on how they want to put on weight. In terms of the results and how do they go, as you can see there, the cow condition was at the start, that was a condition score that was done on the 3rd of May. That was, quite a spread, as you'd expect, with the cows, a few 3.5s, lots of 4s, 4.2s. Then by the 30th of July, when some of these cows would have calved by then, but you can see that we've really tightened up that range of cow condition to mainly 5s and 5.5s, where 77% of the herd was sitting in that category, with a few fat ones that just couldn't help themselves during the winter. So, it certainly worked well for last year for Lincoln, and the benefits here of getting those cows sorted is that anything that's by sorting out our light cows, our reproductive performance is better. Unfortunately, not coming through with an empty rate just yet, but we have a very, very tight calving spread, and that's helped out by having a good tight condition score. Avoiding the 6s and 6.5s, we've still got plenty of them, and probably too many, but those of you who've carved down carryovers and really fat cows, metabolics can be a real nightmare for those sorts of cows in the springs and be high on the workload. Also losing rapid loss of weight isn't ideal for getting cows back in calf afterwards either as well. So proofs in the pudding, we knocked it off nicely last year. And I think, for my, that was probably the big take home for me when I went through the maths with Peter a year ago. It's just, the average diet doesn't need to be any higher. We just need to put in a bit more work, and for the sake of doing a condition score, during May, it goes, it can go a long way to saving some feed. You still have time to do this, whether you use a vet, a technician, or a condition scorer. You've still got another 10 days or so, and the beauty about doing them late is you can just draft them up and paint them. So I had my cows condition scored about 4 days ago, so we've got a lot of multicoloured cows sitting up the paddock now ready to be drafted. So I'm quite happy to draft late. Cool. That's us on winter feeding based on condition.
All right, great, Jeremy, that was awesome. We've got a question coming in from Facebook. Someone's wondering what measures you can take to maximize utilization.
Yeah, probably the first one is getting your first and obvious one is getting your break size perfect, day in and day out. So is it, making sure that they if you're feeding, making sure your square meters per cow is based on what crop you have available and is staying consistent from day to day. If you feed a cow 15 kilos one day and you're trying to average her out at 12, she'll probably waste a bit of that because the utilisation will drop off. And then to average it out at, say, 10 kilos, so you cut it back to 5 kilos the following day, then that day she goes hungry, so your results just aren't as good. So hopefully that's making sense. So I can't emphasise enough in terms of really getting consistency in your break size, especially if you're running at the lower ends of those intakes with fatter cows as well. It becomes more and more sensitive to it. Positioning of supplements is essential. Making sure staff aren't just dropping it in the middle of the break, that they are keeping to the edges of the break. Have some clients that they will, once they've broken open a paddock behind the trough, they'll actually run another break fence up, and then for the whole winter feed the supplements under the break fence so cows can't stand in it and shit in it. And waste on feeders are a really good investment as well, especially for balers. You can get, it's not uncommon to look in the bottom of a waste on when at the end of the day to find just a couple of sticks and a bit of dock left in there, the whole thing's been licked up. Yield assessments, they're essential, but they vary quite a bit as well. So you need to make sure you get your, if you want, for good feed budgeting, get your yield assessments done. But you just need to be a wee bit cynical about them as well. So you back it up with a bit of observation in terms of have we got this right? Are the cows telling us they're fully fed or not? As I mentioned before, a cow giving 15, 16 kilos, she should have enough for a midnight feast sitting there at 5 o'clock when you go home. If a cow's on 10, 12 kilos, by 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock at sundown, there's not much left at all, if not pretty much bare. So, back it up with a bit of observation. And even between the mobs, if you've got a mob on 10 and a mob on 16, you should see a significant time difference when they run out of feed. A good 6 or 8 hours difference between them to make sure that's happening.
Great. Well, doesn't look like any more questions are coming through, so we can wrap this up. Thank you very much, Jeremy. And we'll be back on June 2nd to have a virtual farm visit with Peter again. Yeah,
and then for June, Claire, we've got Garth Stern from LIC going through our mating plan, how the results went from last year's mating, and also around the quality of heifers and wagyus and those sorts of things, and what calves we're expecting to land this season as well. So doing that in June. So for those of you who are seeing LIC through the winter months and doing your orders for spring mating, hopefully they'll give you some fresh ideas.
Great.
Thank
Yeah. And we'll have the Facebook events for both of those up soon. So thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Claire.